I used to think my scars were nothing more than strange, ugly marks life had carved into me, two pale streaks twisting across my forearms like burned ribbons. I never remembered how I got them. No one ever had answers. So I learned to hide them, to pretend they didn't matter. But everything changed the moment a billionaire grabbed my arm at a charity gala. His fingers tightened around my wrist. His eyes widened, shocked, disbelieving, almost terrified. "Those scars," he whispered, breath trembling. "I've been looking for you for 29 years. The entire room fell away. The music drowned out. My heart stopped. I didn't even know this man's name. But he looked at me like he had just found someone he'd been grieving for decades. Then he leaned closer and said the words that shattered my entire world. "It's time you know the truth." People assume the biggest moments in life come with warning signs, some kind of whisper in the air, a sense that the ground beneath your feet is shifting. My life never worked that way. Nothing about me ever came with warnings. Most days began the same. The shrill buzz of my discount alarm clock at 5:45 a.m., the faint rattle of the old pipes in my building, and the cold Chicago air sneaking through the cracked window frame, no matter how many towels I stuffed along the edges. My apartment wasn't much, just a studio with peeling paint and a view of the alley, but it was what I could afford on an event assistant's salary. I'd pull myself out of bed, make instant coffee, and stare at my reflection in the bathroom mirror. Not at my face, at my arms. Two pale, jagged scars running from my wrists toward my elbows like faded lightning bolts. They'd been there for as long as I could remember, which isn't saying much because I remembered nothing before age 4. My adoptive mother, Margaret Carter, used to say, "Sweetheart, some stories don't need to be opened again." She said it gently, with that soft voice of hers, the same voice that used to lull me to sleep when I had nightmares. She found me outside a burning building when she was volunteering in Wyoming alone. Terrified, barely breathing. That's how she described it. She claimed no one else was around, no traces of a family, no evidence of who I had been. She told doctors the scars must have come from the fire. They weren't so sure, but everyone eventually agreed the past was too broken to piece together. So we buried it. Still, some nights when the city quieted and the world slowed, I would lie awake tracing those scars with my fingertips. They felt wrong, too deliberate, too symmetrical. Not like random burns, but like something with a story. A story I wasn't allowed to know. Yet every morning I covered them with long sleeves, bracelets, anything to keep people from staring. Questions were dangerous. Questions opened doors. And I wasn't ready for what might be on the other side. My job setting up corporate events, sweeping confetti from floors, fixing last-minute crises, no one thanked me for wasn't glamorous. But it kept me busy. It gave me structure, predictability. I knew where every tablecloth was stored, which chandeliers flickered, which clients would scream at me for mistakes I didn't make. Invisible work suited me. It allowed me to exist quietly, unnoticed, safe. On the day of the Kingsley Foundation Gala, I remember thinking it was just another overtime shift, another night of hauling crates, arranging wine glasses, and pretending not to hear the elite complain about things that cost more than my monthly rent. The event was held at the Kingsley Grand Hall, a place so massive it could swallow 3 of my apartments stacked on top of each other. As usual, I blended into the background. That was the rule. No attention. No personal conversations. No mistakes. But something felt off that night. Not in the room, not in my surroundings inside me. A strange, restless pull in my chest, like someone was whispering my name from a memory I'd forgotten how to access. I brushed it off as exhaustion. Maybe low blood sugar. Maybe nerves. I had no way of knowing the truth. No way of knowing that the life I built so carefully, every wall, every lie, every layer of protection was about to be ripped apart. No way of knowing that a man I'd never met was about to look at my scars and recognize me. That the past I thought was buried would rise from the ashes I'd been born into. That my ordinary, invisible life was only the prologue to a story far more dangerous than I ever imagined. And that I, Sienna Carter, was living under a name that was never truly mine. If there's one thing you learn working events for the wealthy, it's this. They don't see you. Not really. Your background noise, like the music, like the lighting, like the champagne that refills itself. That night at the Kingsley Gala was supposed to be no different. The ballroom glittered with chandeliers taller than I was, casting golden light across marble floors polished so perfectly they reflected the gowns of women who had never known the word budget. I stayed near the edges of the room, tray balanced on my palm, offering glasses of champagne to people who didn't bother making eye contact. I didn't mind. Invisibility was safe. I was collecting empty glasses from a table when a woman in diamonds brushed past me, her perfume so strong it made me blink. Her laughter echoed sharply, but it was the man she was speaking to who caught my eye, Alexander Kingsley. I'd seen him in magazines, founder of Kingsley Holdings, philanthropist, billionaire tycoon, a man whose face alone could shift stock markets. I froze when I saw him standing less than 10 feet away, a presence so commanding the air around him felt tighter. He was older now, silver hair, sharp jawline, eyes like steel behind faint lines of exhaustion. But there was something else about him tonight, something unsettled. He turned his head casually, mid-conversation, and his gaze landed on me. I felt it like a strike to the chest. At first, I assumed he was irritated. Maybe I'd wandered too close. Maybe I was blocking a camera shot. I started to step back, lowering my eyes. But then, his expression changed. The conversation around him blurred. His face drained of color. His mouth parted slightly, as if he'd seen something impossible. Or someone. I followed his gaze down to my arms. The tray tilted dangerously in my hand. Damn it. My sleeve had slipped, revealing one of my scars. Before I could pull it back up, he moved. Fast. Too fast for a man his age. He crossed the distance between us in 3 long strides. A few guests gasped as he cut directly through the crowd, ignoring everyone, eyes fixed solely on me. I stepped back instinctively, but he didn't stop. His hand shot out and wrapped around my wrist. I sucked in a breath, part pain, part shock. "Sir, you can't, I'm working," I stammered. But he didn't hear me. His fingers trembled against my skin as he pushed my sleeve up, exposing the full length of the scar. The room around us fell silent, not literally, but in that strange way where everything feels muted except your own heartbeat. He stared. Not like he was curious. Like he was remembering. Like he was grieving. Then, in a voice hoarse and cracking at the edges, he whispered, "Those scars." He swallowed hard. "I've been looking for you for 29 years. My entire body went numb. The tray slipped from my other hand. Thank God it was empty, but it clattered loudly enough that people turned. I ripped my wrist from his grasp. I don't know what you're talking about," I whispered, breath shaking. "Please, you're mistaken." He shook his head furiously. No, I'm not mistaken." His voice was urgent now, frantic. Your arms, your face. God, it can't be coincidence. Not after all this time." People began whispering. Cameras turned. Donna, my manager, looked like she might faint. "I think you should let me go," I said, backing up. But Alexander stepped forward again, desperation in his eyes. "Sienna, isn't it? That's your name?" I froze. "How do you?" His jaw tightened. "It's not your real name." My throat closed. "What?" He glanced around sharply, as though realizing the scene he was causing, then lowered his voice. "Come with me, please. There's something you need to see. Something that belongs to you." My instincts screamed no. Every rule I'd ever learned in this job said to walk away. But something else, a tiny, terrified pull inside my chest, held me in place. A memory too faint to grasp. A voice calling my name from long ago. Before I knew it, Alexander Kingsley had turned and was striding toward a private hallway. And I found myself following him, as if my scars had been waiting for this moment. My entire life. I didn't remember deciding to follow him. One moment I was frozen in the ballroom. The next, I was walking down a dim corridor behind Alexander Kingsley, the most powerful man in the building, maybe in the city. While my heart pounded so violently, it felt like it might split open. The hallway swallowed the music from the gala until it was nothing but a distant hum. Our footsteps echoed in a rhythm that felt too strange, too heavy, too final. "Where are we going?" I asked, forcing the words out. "To the only place where you'll believe me," he said without turning around. His voice was unnervingly calm now, but not cold, more like he was carrying something fragile in his hands and was afraid any wrong move might break it. We reached a set of tall mahogany doors at the end of the hall. Without knocking, without hesitation, he pushed them open. Warm light spilled out, and he stepped inside. I stopped at the threshold. The room smelled like old books and cedar wood. A fire crackled in the stone hearth, casting flickering shadows across walls lined with framed photographs, hundreds of them. A grand piano sat in one corner, untouched but polished. Leather chairs, heavy curtains, everything about the room whispered money, legacy, memory. But none of that mattered, because once I crossed the doorway, the man I'd followed turned to face me. "Close the door," he said softly. My hands shook as I obeyed. He gestured toward a chair, but I couldn't sit. My legs felt weak, but my instincts warned me I'd need to stand for balance, for safety, for whatever truth was about to hit me. He didn't force the issue. Instead, he walked to a cabinet, unlocked it, and pulled out a thin, worn leather folder. When he turned back, his expression had shifted again, no longer frantic, no longer confused, but gentle, as if he pitied me, or feared for me. "Sienna," he began carefully. "I know you think I'm mistaken. I know this is overwhelming. But I need you to listen before you walk out of this room." "I shouldn't even be in this room," I whispered. "I'm staff. If Donna finds me—" "Your manager won't say a word," he interrupted. "She's already been told you're unavailable." My stomach twisted. "You told her? Why?" "Because you're not just staff tonight." His eyes softened. "You're the reason I hosted this gala at all." I stared at him, stunned. "That doesn't make sense. You didn't even know me." "Yes," he said, voice dropping. "I did." He opened the leather folder. Inside was a single photograph. A little girl, 4, maybe 5. Brown hair, bright blue eyes, standing in a backyard with a crooked smile like she didn't know the world was watching her. But it wasn't the smile that made my breath catch. It was the scars. 2 pale streaks, one along each forearm, twisting upward in the exact same shape, the exact same pattern, as mine. I stepped back so fast I bumped into the closed door. "No," I whispered. "No, that's impossible." He held the photograph in both hands, as though handing me something sacred. "This is Aurora Kingsley," he said. "My granddaughter." I shook my head violently. "That's not me." His voice broke as he replied, "Sienna, Aurora disappeared 29 years ago. She was 4. The room tilted. My pulse roared in my ears. He continued, each word like a blade. "She vanished the night my daughter, her mother, died in a house fire. The flames destroyed everything. There were no remains of Aurora, no traces. And for 29 years I have searched for her." He looked at me with eyes that had grieved too long. "Until I saw you tonight." I forced myself to breathe, forced my voice out. "That doesn't prove anything." "No," he admitted. "It doesn't." Then he lifted another object from the folder. A small metal charm, half melted, half intact. A silver letter A. My knees buckled. He stepped forward but didn't touch me. He simply held the charm toward me like a question I didn't want to answer. "We found this in the ashes," he said quietly. "It belonged to Aurora's bracelet, one her mother made for her. It was the only thing that survived." The charm gleamed in the firelight like a piece of my past, clawing its way back to life. But the final blow came when he whispered, "I don't want to scare you. I don't want to claim you. I only want to give you the truth you were denied." I swallowed hard. My throat was dry. My palms were sweating. "Why me?" I whispered. "Why would you think I'm her?" He took a slow breath. "Because, Sienna, your scars aren't random. They aren't medical. They aren't accidental." His voice trembled. "They are identical to the ones Aurora had the night she disappeared." Silence swallowed the room whole. And for the first time in my life, I felt the world I built for myself begin to crack open at the seams. I don't remember leaving the Kingsley estate. I don't remember the taxi ride. I don't remember climbing the stairs to my apartment. All I remember is standing in my bathroom, staring at my scars under the harsh fluorescent light scars I thought I'd made peace with. But now they felt like strangers, like pieces of a puzzle I'd never agreed to solve. My reflection looked back at me shaking, pale, spiraling. Aurora Kingsley. The name echoed through my skull like a scream. I grabbed my phone with trembling hands and called the only person who ever mattered. "Mom?" My voice cracked. I need to see you, please." Margaret Carter arrived 20 minutes later, still in her robe, hair tucked into a loose bun, worry etched across her face. She rushed toward me as soon as I opened the door. "Sienna, honey, what happened? You sound terrified." I stepped back. For the first time in my life, I stepped away from her. "Don't call me that," I whispered. She froze. I didn't mean to say it. The words just fell out sharp, heavy, trembling. Margaret blinked rapidly, confusion giving way to fear. What? What do you mean? I shut the door and leaned against it, feeling suddenly trapped in my own home. Where did you find me? I asked. No stories, no softness, no metaphors. I want the truth. Her breath hitched. Sweetheart, we've talked about this. No. Not the version you told when I was 5 and scared of the dark. Not the version for school projects or doctors. I mean the truth. She opened her mouth, then closed it. Her hands twisted together nervously, the way they always did when she was about to lie. My chest tightened. Mom, did you know who I was? Her face crumpled, and that was all the answer I needed. I felt the world tilt under my feet. Margaret reached for me, but I stepped away again. Just tell me, I demanded. Please. She sank onto the couch with the weight of someone who had been carrying a secret too heavy for one lifetime. When I found you, she began slowly, there was a fire. A terrible fire outside a home in Wyoming. I wasn't inside the building. I was volunteering with the fire response team. They told us no one survived. And then, she looked up at me with tear-filled eyes. I heard crying. My throat tightened painfully. You were lying near the edge of the trees, she continued. Clothes burned, skin blistered, barely conscious. There was no one else around. No adults, no family. Just you. She wiped her face with shaking hands. The police said you were abandoned during the chaos. That someone left you and ran. That's what I believed. I felt sick. Because Alexander's words were still ringing in my ears. She disappeared in a fire. What else did you find? I whispered. There was something else, wasn't there? Margaret hesitated. Mom. She broke. She reached into her purse with trembling fingers and pulled out a tiny plastic bag protected all these years. Inside was a half-melted silver charm. The shape warped but unmistakable. A single letter, A. My breath shattered. I kept it, Margaret whispered. I didn't know what it meant, but I couldn't bring myself to throw it away. I grabbed the bag with numb fingers. When were you going to tell me? She sobbed. When you asked, she whispered. I promised myself I would never lie if you demanded the truth. But you never pushed. You seemed happy. I didn't want to drag you into a past that might hurt you. My voice rose, unexpectedly sharp. You didn't want to lose me. Her silence stabbed me deeper than any confession. I felt my knees tremble. Did you ever think, I said quietly, that somewhere out there, someone might have been looking for me? Margaret covered her mouth, breaking into uncontrollable tears. Every day, she choked. I was terrified that someone would come take you away. I'm not proud of that. I'm not proud of being selfish. But I loved you so much I convinced myself you were meant to be mine. My anger dissolved into something softer, sadder, more complicated. She wasn't a villain. She wasn't a thief. She was a woman who found a burning, broken child and held on too tightly. Because she never thought she deserved a miracle. I sat beside her, both of us crying for different reasons. Finally, I whispered. There was a note, wasn't there? She nodded slowly. Only half of one, she said. Burned along the edge. Hard to read. But the words that survived. She swallowed hard. They frightened me. What did it say? Her voice dropped to a tremble. If she survives, don't let him find her. I don't need. The room went silent. My blood ran cold. My real father. Someone dangerous enough that my dying mother tried to hide me from him. And suddenly, everything Alexander said didn't feel impossible anymore. It felt terrifyingly real. I didn't sleep that night. How could I? The half-burned words from the note kept echoing through my skull like a warning siren. If she survives, don't let him find her. Him. Not them. Not anyone. One man. Singular, specific, dangerous. And that man was my biological father. By the time morning crept through my window, I had only one thought left in my mind. I needed answers. And the only person who had them was the billionaire who claimed he'd been searching for me for 29 years. When I arrived at the Kingsley estate again, this time through the front gate instead of the staff entrance, the guards didn't question me. They recognized me instantly. That terrified me more than anything. Alexander was waiting in the study, standing near the fire, hands clasped so tightly his knuckles were white. When he turned and saw me, his shoulders fell with a mixture of relief and heartbreak. You came, he whispered. I need the truth, I said. All of it. No more pieces, no more hints. Tell me who he is. Alexander closed his eyes for a long moment. Then he spoke the words that changed the way I thought about my entire existence. Your father's name is Elias Kingsley. The name meant nothing to me. But the way he said it, heavy, ashamed, almost poisonous, made my stomach twist. He's my son, Alexander continued quietly. Aurora's father. Your father. And it my sinky. I steadied my breath. What happened to him? Alexander didn't answer. Not immediately. Instead, he walked to the wall of photographs and pulled down a frame. He handed it to me. A family portrait. A younger Alexander. A beautiful woman with soft eyes, my mother, Emily. And beside her, a man with a smile that didn't reach his eyes, Elias. His hand rested on the shoulder of a little girl, me, smiling up at the camera as if nothing dark lived in the world. I stared at the photograph, searching for any trace of memory. Nothing came. Only a nervous prickle at the back of my neck. He looks normal, I whispered. That was the problem, Alexander replied. He looked normal, acted normal, until he didn't. I lowered the picture, dread pooling in my chest. Tell me. Alexander swallowed hard. Your father loved control. He needed it the way other people need air. When Emily, your mother, became pregnant, he became obsessive, possessive. He didn't want anyone touching you, holding you, looking at you. Not even her. My heart dropped. He said the world didn't deserve you, that you belonged only to him. I tried to intervene, but Emily begged me not to escalate things. She said she could handle him. He shook his head bitterly. She was wrong. I gripped the back of a chair to steady myself. Did he hurt her? Alexander's jaw tightened. Not at first. But after you were born, something in him snapped. He didn't want Emily going anywhere alone. He demanded she quit her career. He isolated her. And when she talked about leaving him, Alexander's voice cracked. He threatened to take you away. If we... Cold washed over me, but Emily refused. She planned to divorce him quietly. She was going to take you and come stay with me until things settled. I felt tears push at my eyes. She was trying to protect me. All she ever did was protect you, Alexander said softly. He turned toward the fire, staring into the flames as though replaying something he wished he could erase. The night of the fire, Emily called me, whispering, panicked. She said Elias found the divorce papers, that he was furious, that he wasn't going to let her steal his daughter. His hands shook as he continued. And then I heard him shouting in the background. A crash. And she said, "Dad, please," before the line went dead. My breath caught painfully in my throat. You think he set the fire? Alexander looked at me with eyes full of grief and certainty. I don't think, Sienna. I know. The room seemed to shrink around me. But if he started the fire, I whispered. How did I survive? Alexander stepped closer, his voice trembling. Emily got you out. She must have carried you through the back hallway. That's where they found a trail of blood and burned fabric. She protected you until her last breath. I pressed my hand against my mouth as a sob escaped. My mother didn't abandon me. She died trying to save me. But how did I end up so far from the house? I choked out. Margaret found me near the trees alone. Alexander nodded grimly. We believe Emily collapsed before she could reach the road. But you must have run. Maybe confused, maybe terrified. Children sometimes wander in shock. Search teams found nothing before the flames swallowed the house. By the time rescue expanded the perimeter, you were gone. Tears blurred my vision. And Elias? What happened to him? He fled, Alexander said, voice tight. By the time authorities searched for him, he'd vanished. Disappeared off the grid. He was gone before anyone realized Aurora. You weren't in the house. I felt the floor tilt beneath me. He's still out there, Alexander said quietly. Somewhere. And he has spent 29 years believing his daughter died in that fire. I froze. Horror rolled through me like ice. So, he doesn't know I survived? No, Alexander whispered. But he will. A chill crawled up my spine. I don't understand, I said. Why would he come for me now? After all these years? Alexander's expression hardened into something cold, protective, terrified. Because men like Elias don't stop obsessing. Not ever. And once he realizes Aurora is alive? He paused. He will come for you, Sienna. My blood ran cold. In that moment, the truth settled heavy in my bones. My scars didn't just mark a tragedy. They marked me as the daughter of a dangerous man, as the girl my mother died to protect, as the secret someone wanted buried in ashes. And now that secret was rising again, with me at the center of it. I told myself I only needed closure. One conversation. One visit to the place where my life began and ended 29 years ago. But when Alexander's car turned off the main road and followed a dirt path through the Wyoming woods, every instinct inside me screamed that closure was a lie. Nothing about this place felt closed. The land was quiet, almost too still, like the air itself was holding its breath. All that remained of the old Kingsley house was a blackened foundation surrounded by overgrown weeds. Burned beams jutted out like broken ribs. The smell of smoke should have disappeared decades ago, but I swore I could still smell it. "This is where your mother died," Alexander said softly beside me. "Where everything ended." I stepped toward the ruins slowly, my heart thudding so hard it rattled my ribs. As soon as my foot hit the cracked concrete, something inside me shifted. A flash, Emily's screams, Elias shouting in the hallway, my small hands burning as I pulled on her arm. Her whisper, "Tell thee Wajid, run, baby, run." The memory hit me so violently I doubled over, gripping my knees. "Sienna?" Alexander rushed toward me. "I remember," I breathed. "Just flashes, but I remember her." He placed a trembling hand on my shoulder. "She loved you more than anything." Before I could answer, a twig snapped behind us. Both of us whipped around. A man stepped out from behind the tree line. Tall, lean, gray streaking his hair, a long coat hanging from his shoulders, his eyes sharp, icy, and disturbingly familiar. I didn't need anyone to tell me who he was. My father, Elias Kingsley. He didn't look shocked to see us. He looked satisfied. "Aurora," he whispered, a smile spreading across his face. "My little girl." Every cell in my body recoiled. Alexander stepped in front of me instantly. "Elias, stay where you are." Elias chuckled. "Oh, father, always trying to control what isn't yours." His eyes drifted to me again, hungry, possessive, reverent in a way that made my stomach twist. "You grew up beautifully," he said. "Just as I knew you would." My voice cracked. How did you find us?" He tilted his head slightly. "I never stopped looking. Not for a single day. I knew the moment Aurora was alive, the world would eventually reveal her to me." Alexander's voice was steel. "She is not yours." Elias's smile sharpened. "She's not yours either." He took one slow step forward. I grabbed Alexander's arm. "Don't let him come near me." Elias's eyes softened in a way that made my skin crawl. "My darling, you don't need protection from me. I saved you." "Saved me?" I spat. "You tried to kill us both." His expression twisted not into rage, but into pity. "Oh, Aurora, you were too young to understand. Your mother was taking you away from me. She was destroying our family. I had to stop her." I physically felt the blood drain from my face. "You set the fire," I whispered. He didn't deny it. He didn't even blink. "I created a barrier," he said calmly. "A moment of purification. We were supposed to walk out together. But Emily ran. She always ran. And I survived," I said, voice trembling. The smile vanished from his face. "Yes," he said, almost disappointed. "You survived, and they stole you from me." "They?" Alexander barked. "You mean the people who found her abandoned in the woods because her mother died saving her from you?" Elias's face darkened in an instant. "I never abandoned her," he hissed. "She ran, and they hid her. All of you hid her." Then his eyes snapped back to mine. "But it's over now. You're here. It's time to come home." He took another step toward me. "Don't move," Alexander shouted. Elias ignored him. "I know you're scared," he said gently. "But you'll understand once you're away from all the people who poisoned you against me." "That's enough," Alexander growled. "You're not taking her." Elias's voice hardened. "She's my blood. And Emily was my daughter." Alexander shot back, fists clenched. "You stole her life. I will not let you steal Aurora's." The tension between them snapped like a cable. Elias lunged. I barely had time to scream before Alexander shoved me behind him. The two men collided, one fueled by obsession, the other by guilt and desperation. Elias grabbed Alexander by the coat, snarling, "You ruined everything. You killed my daughter!" Alexander roared back. I stumbled backward, heart pounding, terrified they would both die in the ruins of the same house where everything began. "Stop!" I shouted. "Both of you." But Elias wasn't listening. His hands moved toward something inside his coat. A cold rush of fear shot down my spine. "Alexander!" I cried. "He's reaching for something." Before Elias could pull it free, police lights flickered through the trees. "Elias Kingsley!" A voice boomed. "Don't move." Elias's head snapped up. For the first time, he looked truly afraid. He backed away from Alexander, eyes wild. "No," he whispered. "No, not again. I won't lose her again." He turned toward me desperately. "Aurora, please come with me. You belong with me." Something inside me broke. Years of emptiness, a lifetime of not knowing, the scars that haunted me. The mother who died trying to save me. I stared straight into his frantic eyes and said the words I should have said 29 years ago. "I don't belong to you." Over. Elias froze. "I will never belong to you." Police surrounded him. He didn't fight. He didn't run. He just stared at me with a hollow, devastated expression as the handcuffs locked around his wrists. "Aurora," he whispered one last time, voice shattering. "You were supposed to be mine." As they dragged him away, I felt something in me loosen, something that had been strangling my heart for as long as I'd been alive. Alexander stood beside me, shaken, breathless. "You're safe now," he rasped. "I swear to you, you're safe." But safety didn't feel like freedom. Not yet. Not after everything that had been torn open. The days after Elias's arrest felt unreal, like I was living inside someone else's memories instead of my own life. Every morning I woke up expecting to return to work, to slip into anonymity, to hide my scars and drink cheap coffee in my cramped apartment. But anonymity was gone. Aurora Kingsley was no longer a secret, and I didn't know how to exist as her. Alexander insisted I stay at the Kingsley estate for safety. Reporters swarmed the gates. Lawyers called. Detectives called. Family members I'd never met sent messages dripping with curiosity, confusion, and worst of all, expectation. Expectation that I would step into a life I had never lived. Expectation that I would magically fit into a legacy built long before I took my first breath. The first time I walked into the Kingsley boardroom invited, not as staff but as blood, every conversation stopped. Executives whispered behind polished glass walls. A woman in a sleek navy suit openly stared at my arms, her expression a mix of fascination and suspicion. Alexander squeezed my shoulder. "Ignore them, they'll adjust." But I wasn't sure I would. He introduced me one by one to cousins, distant relatives, shareholders who only saw me as a headline come alive. Some were warm, others were cold enough to frost granite. One cousin leaned close and murmured, "So, now that you're back, what happens to the inheritance?" I stepped away before I said something I'd regret. Later, in Alexander's private office, I finally asked the question pressing on my chest. "Why does everyone care? They don't know me," he sighed, rubbing the bridge of his nose. "Because they know what you are, even if you don't yet. You're the rightful heir to your mother's shares. Your existence changes the family power structure." I blinked. "I don't want power." He gave me a weary smile. "Power doesn't care." That night, I called Margaret. Hearing her voice steadied me. "Sweetheart," she said, "don't let anyone force you into a life you're not ready for." "I don't even know who I am," I whispered. "Sienna? Aurora? Both? Neither?" There was a long pause before she answered. "Then maybe you get to choose." Her words echoed in my mind for days. I visited the Foundation archives, reading everything I could about my mother, her charity work, her speeches, her fierce compassion. I learned who she was long before she became the ghost that haunted my dreams. Every file I opened felt like reclaiming a piece of myself. And slowly, very slowly, I began to rebuild. I enrolled in a trauma support program recommended by the detectives. I met with a therapist who taught me that memory doesn't define identity, choice does. I took morning walks on the estate grounds, breathing air that felt both foreign and strangely familiar. And I kept reminding myself, I wasn't required to be the girl the Kingsleys imagined. Or the child Elias tried to possess. Or even the orphan Margaret rescued. I could be all of them. On a quiet evening, just a few weeks after the arrest, Alexander joined me on the balcony overlooking the lake. For a long time, neither of us spoke. Then he said softly, "I hope you know you don't owe this family anything." "I know," I replied. "But I owe myself the truth." He nodded, tears reflecting in the fading sunset. You remind me so much of Emily, he whispered. For the first time, I didn't flinch when he said it. For the first time, I didn't feel like an imposter in a stranger's name. I was beginning to understand something. Identity isn't about what you inherit. It's about what you decide to carry forward. A month after Elias was arrested, I returned to Wyoming alone. Not to the ruins, not to the fear, but to the cemetery where my mother, Emily Kingsley, was buried under a simple white headstone, marked only with her name and the year she died. No photograph, no biography, just a date and a life cut short. I brought white lilies, the same flowers from a photo Alexander showed me, where she held me in her arms before everything burned. I knelt beside her grave, fingers brushing the cold stone, and for the first time in years, I didn't hide my scars. I remember you now, I whispered. Not everything, not clearly, but enough. A breeze swept through the trees, soft and warm, almost like a hand on my shoulder. I'm sorry I couldn't save you, I said. I tried, I know that now. My voice cracked, but the ache in my chest wasn't the same hollow pain I'd carried my whole life. It was something fuller, heavier, real. I survived, I whispered. You made sure of that. And I promise I'll live a life worthy of what you protected. I set the lilies down and stood, looking out at the horizon. The Wyoming sky stretched endlessly above me, wide and blue, just like the eyes I saw in that photograph. For the first time, I felt connected to it, to her, to the child I once was, to the woman I was becoming. As I traced the scars on my arms, the lines didn't feel jagged anymore. They didn't feel like wounds or reminders of terror. They felt like directions, a map, a path carved not by pain alone, but by survival, by love. Because those scars had carried me through fire, through lies, through fear, and somehow led me back to the truth of who I was. Not just Sienna Carter, not just Aurora Kingsley, but someone stronger than both. As I walked away from my mother's grave, sunlight caught the silver charm around my neck, the melted letter A, the only piece of my past that survived the flames. And for the first time, I knew exactly what it meant. I was home.